of money on the backs of our children. And it is robbing our children of their childhood. And it is wrong. I'm a kindergarten teacher. This is my 35th year. I'm retiring in 4 months. And I can't wait to get out. And it's not because of the children. After all these years, I still find young children to be incredibly charming. It's because of what teaching has become. You know, I know you've been bludgeoned, and I'm about to bludgeon you some more. Because I'm going to tell you what's happening in kindergarten. Last year, I lost a full half of my instructional time to assessments. You know, I'm a teacher that's used to ending the school year with really high scores in reading, writing, and math. But last year, the scores were only average. And the reason is because I lost so much instructional time. When children are being assessed, they are not learning. And when you spend so much time, you know, this calendar is just horrifying to think that we are spending so much time on assessing kids when they are not learning anything. I, like most teachers, have spent my entire career trying to reach higher and trying to find ways to connect with and inspire my students. A whole half of my instructional time lost to testing. No, there's no value in these tests at our level. I don't know if there's any value at the high school level. I suspect that there isn't. But at my level, the tests that we give the children have absolutely no value to me as a teacher. And so what that means is that once I'm done giving the tests that are required by the state, I still have to go back and assess them to find out what I need to know. Last year, at the end of the year, halfway through May, I thought I was done with all the assessments. And my principal walked into the classroom and plunked this big, thick pile of tests down on my table and said, "You have to give these tests to your kids before the end of the school year. They're from the state." There went the rest of my instructional time. And worse, there went any possibility of any quality time that I might have with those children that I had invested so much of myself in. These tests are draining the teachers. They're draining the children. They're draining the schools of money because these tests are very expensive. I heard on NPR that the state of Arizona was paying Pearson $1 billion for the PARCC test. And their entire budget was $2 billion. That means that they were spending half of their money on one test. And think about that. If they had not spent that money on the PARCC test, they could have doubled the amount of resources that they had for their children and added a lot more instructional time because they wouldn't have had to take it up with this stupid test and this test prep. This is madness. And they keep piling on more tests. And then it got worse. This year, in the fall, when I got to school, they told us at kindergarten that we had a new test, the KRA, the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. Now this test requires an hour and 15 minutes per child, and you have to give it one child at a time. It has to be given by the classroom teacher, and it has to be given when the rest of the kids are in the room. Now, imagine yourself in a room full of 5-year-olds, okay, that don't know you, they don't know each other, they don't have a routine, and now you're supposed to give them this test, okay? And that wasn't the only test we had to give. It was the end of November, and we were still messing around with giving tests and entering data. And you know, when you're spending a lot of time entering data, you're not writing lesson plans. You're not developing materials. And the state thinks that they're getting really good information when they enter all that data. But I'm telling you, it's not good data, because every teacher knows that if you want to know what a child can do and what they know, you have to watch that child over time. And you have to watch them do those tasks in different settings. And even if you gave them the same test over again in a week, you might get a wildly different score, especially at the kindergarten level. I've had 3 kids in my class that had really low scores on the KRA. And so I'm required to retest those children every week for the entire year. And one of the 3 is now in the top third of my class, but I can't stop testing because of that score that haunts her from the beginning of the school year. This is crazy. You know, I went around the state. You might have noticed my name on the ballot. I ran for Congress in the fall. But as I was going around the state, in every place that I was where there were teachers gathered, I heard the same refrain that the teachers are just trying to say, how can I get out? Like this wonderful teacher that we just heard from. Because the situation is untenable. I heard stories about kindergarten teachers putting children in front of movies all day long. Can you imagine how terrible? Starting your formal schooling, sitting in front of movies all day long. Now, I don't blame the teachers. They were put in an untenable situation. I blame the legislators who created this situation. You know, on one level, it seems that it's a concerted effort to destroy public education. And even worse, it seems to me that this is a sinister attempt by the billionaire class to create cogs for the machine. Because look, why would they be trying so hard to fit every child so neatly into the same box at the same time? because they're not only trying to rush the children who learn a little bit slower, they're also slow walking the gifted kids to try to get everybody to neatly fit in the same box. You know, we keep hearing about Japan and China and Korea and how they have got such wonderful high scores, so much higher than ours. Well, you know what? Every study that I have seen shows that we are on top when it comes to thinking skills and creativity. Why would we want to trade that? And the other thing that's even more sinister is that the suicide rate among children in those countries, teenagers and preteens, who are so under pressure that they think that the only way out they have is through death. I don't want that kind of pressure for our children. For what? You know, Finland, they have the highest, apparently, you know, according to all these studies, the best educational system in the world. And they don't start teaching their children to read until they're 7. Why are we pushing our 5-year-olds so hard to read now? For what? I'll tell you what. It's for profits. It's for profits. I got into teaching, like every other person got into teaching, because I wanted to help to develop the full human potential and to value each child for their gifts, not because I wanted to make them cogs in a machine. And I want to be clear, I want school reform. I do. I'm not looking back at the old days and saying, oh, it was great then and it's terrible now. We do need to reach higher, but the direction that we're going right now is down, not up. We need our school systems to be punctuated by creativity, thinking skills, problem solving, and above all, a love of learning. And this system that we have right now is killing all of that. And that's why we, as the adults, need to stand up for our children. And that's why when I retire in 4 months, I am on a campaign to help to change the trajectory of education in this country, because we, the children, deserve better.